The United Kingdom takes the floor.
Positive steps by Pakistan, including a National Commission for Human Rights, National Action Plan and laws on the rights of women and minorities. We remain deeply concerned about Pakistan's overall human rights record. This includes limits on freedoms of expression and religion or belief, particularly for the Christian and Ahmadiyya Muslim communities, as well as the increased misuse of terror legislation to portray religious publications of minority communities as hate material. We recommend 1. Strengthen the protection of minorities by having a fully inclusive electoral roll without discrimination of election or religious bias, and by establishing an independent National Commission for Minorities from all faith communities, who should appoint their own representatives. 2. Implement fully the National Strategic Framework against trafficking in persons and human smuggling, ensuring adequate human and financial resource. 3. Set a clear timeline for the review of legislation carrying the death penalty, with the aim of limiting the scope of crimes to which it applies. Thank you, Mr. President.
The United States of America has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The United States welcomes the Pakistani delegation to the UPR Working Group. We recommend that Pakistan, 1, repeal blasphemy laws and restrictions and end their use against Ahmadi Muslims and others, and grant the visit of the UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expression. 2, pass an anti-trafficking law that prohibits and penalizes all forms of human trafficking. And 3, track and report the investigation and prosecution of security forces who commit human rights violations and abuses. We commend Pakistan for passing the Hindu Marriage Act, which allows, for the first time, members of the Hindu community to register their marriages. We note increased investigations, prosecutions, and convictions for sex trafficking, and passage of anti-honor killing and anti-rape laws, which, if enforced, should reduce violence against women and girls. We note with concern, however, the enforcement of blasphemy laws and restrictions against Ahmadi Muslims, and the use of these laws to intimidate political opponents and settle personal disputes. Finally, we are concerned about the international NGO policy restricting operations of nonviolent offenses. Thank you, Mr. President.
República Argentina.
The Argentine Republic has the floor. Thank you, President. The Argentinian Republic welcomes the delegation of Pakistan and thanks it for the publication of the report. We'd like to congratulate Pakistan on its ratification in November 2016 of the optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child concerning the involvement of children in armed conflict. Argentina would like to recommend that the authorities take urgent measures to protect women and girls from gender discrimination, in particular by ensuring their access to education. Argentina respectfully recommends that greater efforts be made to investigate reports of discrimination, and that those who commit crimes against ethnic and religious minorities such as the Hazars, Dalits, Christians, Hindus and Ahmadis be brought to justice. Lastly, Argentina recommends that the authorities take the necessary measures to ratify the International Convention on Enforced Disappearance and recognise the committee's competence. Thank you very much. Australia has the floor. France has the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. We would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Asif and the entire Pakistani delegation for the presentation of their report. France welcomes the progress made in human rights in Pakistan, in particular the adoption of a human rights action plan and the establishment of a National Commission for Human Rights. A number of obstacles nonetheless limit the scope of this progress, while Pakistan itself has been elected to the Human Rights Council. In this context, France would make the following recommendations to Pakistan. First, that it establish a moratorium on the death penalty. Second, review procedures applicable for the law on blasphemy to contain abuses, continue the implementation of its law to protect women, continue the adoption of measures to protect journalists and human rights authors, and ensure that those responsible for violence against them are brought to trial. 5, step up the adoption of laws to protection of LGBT persons, in particular the Transgender Protection of Rights Bill. 6, ratify the International Convention against Forced Disappearances. And 7, to take effective measures to protect persons belonging to minorities, in particular the Ahmadi community. Thank you.
Países Bajos tiene la...
Netherlands has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Kingdom of the Netherlands congratulates Pakistan on its recent election to the Human Rights Council as a testimony to Pakistan's commitment to human rights promotion. The Netherlands remains concerned about violence and discrimination against religious, ethnic and gender-based minorities. We recommend Pakistan 1. To adopt and implement legal and practical measures to ensure the protection of religious minorities, including Christians, Ahmadis, Hindus and Sikhs, in line with the previous ICCPR concluding observations, recommendation 34. 2. To adopt effective measures to prevent and punish all forms of discrimination against minority groups by adding clear provisions to Articles 25 to 27 of the Constitution to ensure prohibition of discrimination on all grounds, including sexual orientation and gender identity, as well as by adding clear protection provisions in criminal laws concerning public assembly, obscenity and public nuisance. We thank Pakistan for its constructive engagement and wish Pakistan the very best for the third UPR cycle. Thank you, Mr. President.
Nueva Zelanda.
New Zealand has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome to the delegation from Pakistan. New Zealand recommends Pakistan continue its efforts towards eradicating discrimination and violence against women and girls, including by the full implementation of the anti-rape and anti-honour killing laws, with thorough investigation and prosecution of all violations of those laws. We recommend Pakistan ensure the protection of the right to freedom of religion or belief, expression, association and peaceful assembly by decriminalising blasphemy and respecting, protecting and fulfilling the rights of all religious minorities, including the Ahmadi, Shia Muslims, Christians and Baha'i. New Zealand also wishes to recommend that Pakistan halt the use of the death penalty in all circumstances and take steps towards its abolition, including ratification of the second optional protocol to the ICCPR. Finally, New Zealand recommends that Pakistan ensure due process and full enforcement of laws to avoid extrajudicial, summary or arbitrary killings, freedom and arbitrary detentions, including adopting all necessary measures, including legal and judicial measures, in order to bring an end to impunity and to prevent the recurrence of such activities. Thank you, Mr. President.
India.
India has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We welcome the delegation of Pakistan. We recommend the government of Pakistan following. 1. To provide freedom to the people of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir by ending its illegal and forcible occupation. 2. To dismantle special terrorist zones, safe havens and sanctuaries and take verifiable actions, including on terror financing. 3. To bar military courts from trying civilians and allow their monitoring by international observers and human rights organizations. 4. To allow due legal processes and judicial review by the Supreme Courts and by High Courts and Supreme Court for cases tried by military courts. 5. To fulfill international obligations under ICCPR and VCCR, including consular access for foreign nationals without discrimination. 6. To end harassment of minorities and place procedural and institutional safeguards to prevent misuse of blasphemy law. 7. To end forced conversions and marriages of minorities, including Hindu, Sikh and Christian women, and prosecute all cases. 8. To stop targeting political dissidents and legitimate criticism in Sindh, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The full statement along with the recommendations is available on UPR Extranet. Thank you, Mr. President.